the woman came home in a daze. Even though her heart was aching, in front of others, she still had to pretend nothing was wrong. Even her tears had to be hidden away. That night Annie walked into her sister's room. Her sister had already fallen asleep after taking medicine. Suddenly Annie felt a deep tenderness for her sister. So young yet bound to a wheelchair, it also helped her understand why her father-in-law insisted she keep it a secret. The next day during breakfast, the butler brought in a special glass of milk. Turns out Al knew Annie had caught a cold, and had asked the butler to prepare it for her. He told Annie that drinking it would help her recover quickly. The old woman heard Annie was sick, and immediately ordered the staff to take her to the hospital, so she wouldn't spread anything in the house. Annie didn't argue. She stood up right away to leave, because it meant she could go visit her father-in-law. The wealthy man's condition seemed to have worsened. Seeing him made Annie's eyes fill with tears, and just then the butler showed up at the hospital. She had originally come to check on Annie, but quickly realized it was the wealthy man who needed the attention. He told the butler the same thing, to keep his condition a secret. Afterward Annie told the butler to go home. She would stay behind and take care of him. Meanwhile, Al came home but didn't see Annie anywhere. He called her but no one picked up. He figured maybe she was with his mother, but even his mom wasn't answering her phone. Al started to get worried. The next day when Annie came home, Al immediately asked where she had been the night before. "You better give me an explanation today." The daughter-in-law stayed up all night caring for her critically ill father-in-law, but her husband thought she had been out messing around. When he questioned her, Annie didn't say a word in her own defense, because she had promised her father-in-law to keep it a secret. Al was fed up with Annie always looking hurt, but never explaining anything. Al kept pushing for answers. Just then the housekeeper came in, and said Annie was at my relative's place last night. "I asked her to deliver something for me. Annie told me to let you know, but I forgot. It's all my fault." Al didn't understand why Annie would even hide a trip to a relative's house, but Annie stayed silent, so Al stormed off angrily. Their argument was overheard by a maid outside, who immediately reported it to the old lady. Hearing her daughter-in-law didn't come home all night, and the housekeeper was covering for her, the old lady felt something was off. She called the housekeeper in right away, and demanded an explanation. The housekeeper insisted Annie was at her relative's place, so the old lady asked which relative, then called them up herself, and found out Annie did drop something off, but it was weeks ago. Now the old lady felt she had caught Annie in a lie, so she invited the relative to come over, and called her son home too. Said it was something very important. The four of them sat down face to face. Annie's story fell apart. Al demanded to know where she really was last night. Annie replied, "I can't tell you." Al finally lost his patience, and asked for a divorce. He even called his lawyer, and asked for a divorce agreement. When the old lady heard the news, she immediately shared the good news with the rich girl. Later Al came back with the papers, determined to make Annie sign them. Annie had no choice, but at that moment, the old lady walked in, and surprisingly, she didn't add fuel to the fire. Instead she told Al, "Annie was with me yesterday. I was the one who asked her not to tell you." Al didn't understand why it had to be kept from him, but he believed her anyway. Annie was confused. Why did the old lady cover for her? Later Annie asked her directly. The old lady said, "It was all for the sake of the family's peace. You think I did it for you? You're overthinking." And Annie really was overthinking. Turns out, the rich girl's assistant worked at Al's company. She accidentally saw the divorce agreement, and gave a copy to the rich girl, who then gave it to the old lady. The old lady was shocked, because the divorce came with conditions. Al had agreed to transfer 10% of the company shares to Annie. That meant if Annie agreed to divorce, she would become a shareholder, and a truly wealthy woman. The old lady couldn't let that happen. Meanwhile the father-in-law got better, and came home. Annie finally felt relieved, but her relationship with Al was still very tense. One day Al's little niece came to visit. Everyone adored the girl, especially Annie, who was very close to her, but when the old lady saw it, she looked annoyed. The little girl was clearly scared of her, and clung tightly to Annie. Later the niece got tired, and Annie helped her fall asleep. When she saw Al come in, she insisted he lie down with them too, so Al agreed. Then the girl asked Al how much he loved Aunt Annie. The question caught them both off guard, and made the room go quiet, but the niece was too innocent to notice. She took their hands and made them hold each other. Thanks to her playful gesture, the tension between Al and Annie started to ease. Later they took her to the beach together. The three of them played happily like a real family, and Annie felt a rare sense of belonging. But elsewhere, the old lady and the rich girl were already planning something even bigger. This time they were sure they'd finally drive Annie out of the house for good.